Hello everyone. My name is Elise. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing so good today. We're gonna go over some stats and goals for 2026 so far, and I think I'm changing this up a little bit from how I've done this previously, which is I'm really only gonna talk about the stats that I track myself and care about, and then talk about my goals obviously for the year and see how I'm doing on them. So that way I can kind of prioritize what needs to happen in the back half of the year in order for me to get to my goals. Because I've said this before, but when I set my reading goals at the beginning of the year, I am really actively trying to meet those goals because there's something I want for my overall reading. And they're not like reading intentions for me. They're like, I'm going to try and do whatever I can do to hit them because I feel like my reading needs to change in certain ways. With all that, let's get into, I think, the stats first, because I think we'll probably need those in order to talk about my goals. We'll see. I have the handy dandy laptop and my reading journal, so I can try and get you up to date on everything that's happening with my reading. So let's go ahead and dive on into it. So in terms of stats that I keep track of, I don't really care about the amount of books I'm reading so much, but it is going to be useful to know that as we get into the other stuff. So far at the halfway point, all these stats are at the very halfway point. I've done some reading since, but all these stats are like right at the halfway. I had read 45 books in the first half of the year, which I would say is about comparable to the previous year. On the whole, like average 5-year span, I've been reading slightly less a little bit each year, but this year and last year I think are about the same. So 45 books total. The main stats that I'm tracking in my journal are the translated books that I read. So I track the country that the author is from, and then the language that it was written in originally, and just overall like how many translated books I'm reading per year. And I think I've showed this before, but it's very rudimentary in my journal. My whole reading journal is like very rudimentary. It's not aesthetically pleasing. It's really just for me to track information. So the page just looks like this, if that's focusing. You can kind of see what it looks like. So I just do a tick mark up top for every translated book that I've read, and then country, tick mark, language, tick mark. So at the halfway point of the year, I had read 24% of my books were translated literature. And really, I like that to be a third of my reading, which is why I keep track of this. So this is a good check-in point to tell me that I'm not reading as much translated books as I want to be reading. So I definitely want to prioritize that in the back half of the year. And I'll probably try and come up with some video ideas that are gonna help me achieve that goal to make sure it gives me some like additional external motivation to get through them. So I'm already thinking through, I think one of the publisher taste test videos that I want to do this year, all 3 of the books are translated. So I think I'm going to bump that video up a bit so I get to that one sooner rather than later. And then also trying to prioritize August Women in Translation Month, doing some type of vlog where I'm reading a lot of translated books by women in that video as well. So I think those 2 videos will help kind of boost my numbers back up to where I want them to be. So that's a good thing for me to be thinking about. The other stat that is the main one I track is my independent publishers. So similarly, my page looks like this. So again, just a tick mark at the top for each one that I've read. And then I do write out each publisher as I'm reading them and then do a tick mark for any book that I've read by them. So right now at the halfway point, it was 64% of my reading was from independent publishers. And that's well and above where I want it to be. I like it to be at least 50. So 64%, well over that. So that tells me my independent publisher reading is in a good place, and I can kind of deprioritize that a little bit to try and read some more translated stuff. Honestly, they tend to be very overlapping anyway. But mission accomplished in my head for that one. And then the other thing that I'm tracking-ish is the anticipated new releases that I'm reading. So when I come out with a new releases video on my channel, I keep track of that in my journal. It looks like this, and I write out the title, the date that it's expected to come out, and then when I highlight them, it means that I've read them. Green highlighter means that I have completed that book. Yellow means that I've DNF'd that book. And as you can see on this, I've only read 4 on the first page, and I've read 0 of the rest of them. Now, some of these at the end haven't come out yet because they're coming out in August, but I really would like to pick up my game on my anticipated releases. So something that I'm thinking about doing now, seeing how little I have read, is I'm thinking about doing a series on my channel where I look at my anticipated releases page for every year that I've done it and try and read a handful of them to try and tick some more off. So I might prioritize this video, my reading some 2026 anticipated releases for myself, but I have at least 4 years of anticipated releases written down. So for example, like this is my 2025 page, at least the first page. It tends to be like 3 or 4 pages. So you can see there's more highlighted on this, but still lots that I have not gotten to. So I might do a little series where I kind of read from each year that I have in the journal of ones that I didn't get to and still want to get to. So let me know if you'd be interested in that. So that's my new releases for the year. I've only read 4. I've only read 4 anticipated releases for the year. So definitely want to get cracking on that. Last thing is I also am kind of still keeping track of my Picante Beef Babies. So books that are over 500 pages, that's what I call them. And I finally took this off of my true reading goals because I felt like I was picking them up consistently and finally in the mindset of not being intimidated by them. But I wanted to do a little double check just to see if I was still doing good now that I took it off of my goals. And I'm happy to report that as of the halfway point, I had already read 4 Picante Beef Babies, which is excellent. And my dehumidifier just came on. So if you hear that, apologies, but I can't turn it off. So already read 4, so I feel in a really good place with that. And I think I'm probably going to pick up a lot more, which is going to be, I think this is going to be the year where I've read the most books over 500 pages. And I feel very happy that I've finally gotten over the hump of feeling intimidated by big books and not wanting to pick them up. So that is a great double check for me. So of my stats that I keep track of, really the 2 things that I think I'm not meeting where I want to be are translated books and my new releases that I'm anticipating. So those, again, I'm going to try and prioritize some videos around to boost the numbers there. So that's it for the stats. Now let's get into the actual goals. I had 3 main reading goals this year. The first one is one that I've had, I think, every year on my channel that I've had reading goals, and that is to match my books in and out of my TBR. So books in are anything that I have purchased or willingly brought into my library. So like if I got something from a little free library, I don't count gifted books because I want them to just be gifts and not be worried about the amount of books that people are so lovingly giving to me. And then my books out are just books that I read off of my physical TBR to completion. So if I DNF a book and get rid of it, I don't count that. If I unhaul a book without reading it, I don't count that. It's just books off my TBR that I read to completion, and that kind of balances out the gifts in a way. So I'm happy to report that on this goal, I am so far doing well. So my books in at the halfway point of the year was 20, and my books out at the halfway point was 24. So I have 4 extra in the bag, which is good because I'm already thinking about later in the year, I'm going back to the Portland Book Festival this year. I didn't go last year, but I will be back this year, and I always do a big haul at the Portland Book Festival, and it's in November. So I don't have a lot of time to read through all of those books before the end of the year. So I need to be a little bit ahead, I think. So this is already getting me a little bit ahead, so that's great. Goal number 2, which was a new goal for me this year, and that was to read 50% of the books that I buy this year. And that might not seem like a lot for some people, but I knew that that was gonna be a true stretch for me, but one that I really needed and wanted because my tastes change. I wanna be a little bit better about getting to books that I'm buying sooner because my taste probably aligns the most with that book when I'm buying it, and don't want to have books like languish on my shelves forever and ever and ever. So this one I was so nervous about, but when I did the math for this video, I have read 52% of my purchased books this year. I can't believe it. I can't believe that I've done that. And there was a hard press, I think, for me in June to really get through some of the books that I got for Independent Bookstore Day. Yeah, I made it to 52%. So love to see that. It is another one where I feel like I need to get ahead. So really, I want to keep growing that lead a bit because at the end of the year, Portland Book Festival, November, Christmas, I will get books as well, I'm sure. So I need to have a little bit of a buffer so that doesn't totally wreck my goals. So feel really good that I've made it so far and need to kind of like increase that lead just a bit. I'm also thinking of trying to do a vlog at some point if I need it, like if I need a little like parachute because I'm not doing well on this, of like reading, just doing a vlog of like books that I've bought this year. Let me know if you would be interested in that one. That's kind of like a loose theme, but it would help me to accomplish some of that goal. So I'll have that in my back pocket as well if I end up needing it. So far 2 out of 2 goals ticked off at the midway point. And my last goal was also a new one, a little bit unique for me in that I picked 6 authors that I was gonna read 2 or more books from in the year. And I have always liked doing this. I've just never made it an actual official goal before, but I like reading some authors in short succession because I like being able to think about their body of work and kind of what they're doing over multiple pieces of work. And so there has always been a handful that I read multiple books from each year, but this year I made it a little bit more specific for myself just to see how that would feel. So I picked 2 authors that I had read from before and wanted to read multiple more books from. So these 2 were Olga Ravn and Ben Okri. Now I have read 1 book from Olga Ravn. I read The Wax Child that I did for my International Booker vlog, and I still have My Work to read from her. For Ben Okri, I have not picked up any book by Ben Okri, so I still have 2 more to read. So I need to get cracking on him. And again, this is a good reminder that I need to start picking some of his works up. And then I had 2 authors that I have never read from before, but wanted to read a couple books from, mostly because I already had multiple books on my TBR, even though I've never read them before. And these were Katherine Chigi and Lily King. And I have read 2 books by Lily King, so have ticked her off already. I read Writers and Lovers and Heart the Lover. I adored both of them. They were both in my best books of the year so far. So happy to have read her. I have a couple more books on my shelves from her, so I might get to a 3rd maybe this year. But so far she is already kind of like ticked off for the purposes that I need to. And then Katherine Chigi, at the halfway point, I had not picked up anything by her, but I will say in July, I'm filming this like 2 weeks into July, I am almost done with Pet. So I have picked her up since, and I will have one done by her. So that's at least moving me in the right direction. And then the last 2 authors I picked for this were just going to be wild cards that I decided throughout the year I wanted to have a little bit of freedom to see which authors I might want to read from multiple times. And this, I have completed both of them. So the first one I ended up doing was Anna Palamaya. I read On Earth as It Is Beneath and Of Cattle and Men, which are a series. I read On Earth as It Is Beneath first, which is the prequel. So I read them in chronological order and then read Of Cattle and Men second, even though they were published in the opposite order. So I ended up reading both of those and enjoyed my time with them. There's actually a 3rd book coming out in this series this year. So this is another author that I think I might pick up a 3rd book from in the year and just kind of like finish off what's out from the series. I don't know if it's going to continue beyond the 3 or not, but I enjoyed them. They're very violent, pretty dark, but yeah, that one ticked off. And then the other one was James Islington. So I ended up picking up the 1st and 2nd books in his Hierarchy trilogy, which is a fantasy series, very popular fantasy series, the names of which are The Will of the Many and The Strength of the Few. Because I did my Romantasy project last year and really had a good time with it, I thought maybe I was finally ready to pick up like a true fantasy book, which I haven't picked one up in a while. I've picked up some like genre blend fantasy books. So for example, like the romance fantasy or a mystery fantasy, but I hadn't picked up a true fantasy since I was young, and decided to go with this one because it was so well liked and popular. And I enjoyed my time with it overall. I've talked about how I have some issues with those books and some of the execution of them, but so far I've had a lot of fun. So I've ticked off both of my wildcard authors for this goal. On the whole, right, I needed to read at least 12 books to accomplish this goal for the year. 4 books from authors I've read from before, 4 from new to me authors, and 4 from wildcard authors. And so far, I've read 7 at the halfway point, right? 1 Olga Ravn, 2 Lily Kings, 2 James Islingtons, and 2 Anna Palamayas. So that's 7. So I'm already over the 50% mark. And like I said, I've just picked up Pet as well. So I think I'm in a good trajectory, but I still need to make sure I'm accomplishing this goal. And this is one where I'll have to see at the end of the year how I feel about this goal or not. It has felt a little bit limiting to pick the authors in advance, but also on the flip side of that, it has forced me to get to some books that have been on my shelf for so long that I have been putting off, and I'm grateful for that as well. So doing okay on that. So I would say in my goals so far, I'm 3 for 3. I've really been trying to be more discerning about the books that I physically buy and bring onto my physical TBR, as well as trying to like read them in a timely manner that I'll still enjoy them. And I think both of my first goals are really trying to like solidify some of those things that I want for my reading. And then the third goal has been forcing me to pick up some authors that I just keep deprioritizing for whatever reason, but have always wanted to read. So that's also helping me. So appreciative to these goals for pushing me. Like I said, I want to get a little bit ahead on some of them, but so far, so good. Those are my stats and goals. Mostly successes, a couple things that I need to take into account now that I've done all the math. But please let me know what your goals are for the year and how you've been doing on them. I think reading goals are so fascinating. I think they say a lot about what people want to get out of their reading. And I think that's really cool to think about. And with that, we will see you in the next video, which I think is going to be my next episode of Now or Never. So you have that to look forward to. And I will see you all then. Bye.